Hi there, my name is Rob Affleck, a UX manager here at YouTube Switzerland, and recently I was lucky enough to get a few moments with YouTube's Chief Design Officer, Chris Jaffe. I asked him 5 key questions about his career and some of the key moments in it, his influences, personal work philosophy, and what advice he would have for someone trying to break into the industry. I hope you enjoy this key insight from a really inspiring design leader. Today, I'll be talking with Chris Jaffe, our Chief Design Officer here at YouTube. Thank you, Chris, for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
All right, to kick off, I'd like to get some insights on your path into the field of design. You majored in marine biology, which is a very different field to that of design. So what did that path look like for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, I have had kind of 3 unifying passions throughout my career and life. In no particular order are computers, computer science, photography and design, as well as the ocean. And I went to college originally with a computer science, computer engineering focus, and then kind of fell out of it and chose my passion in biology and marine biology, but also got minors in math, chemistry, and physics, was very focused around kind of the science aspect of things. And then in grad school, moved on to more of the technology side of things and communication. And then after graduate school, pursued a career in photography for a while, which then, it was very interesting because that is what I wanted to pursue for many, many years. But I came to a realization about photography, which is while I was loving doing it, it was very production focused. It was kind of the same work over and over again. And through some twists and turns in my photography career, around getting recognized for some of the design work that I was doing to support my photography work, I started taking on more and more design work. And I started doing more and more design consulting. And then there were some years there where I split my time between photography and design work. And the design work was unlike the photography work, which was very production focused. The design work and consulting around design was always new problems and always new hard problems. And so I just kept doing more and more and more of that. And so today I still spend a lot of time in my personal life in photography and the ocean and other things, but my career is very design focused.
Right, it's fascinating. And often we have like people or events in our lives that really affect or influence the work that we do. Perhaps you could name someone or something that really had an influence on the work that you do today, especially around design.
Yeah, thank you. There was really one person who I think was critical to the work, to kind of framing the work that I do and the way that I do it, which is I had consulted for many, many years. And then in 2006, my wife and I made the decision to move to the Bay Area. And I was very interested in seeing what the opportunities were in Silicon Valley. And did a bunch of interviews, as everyone does when they're going to the Bay Area. And I happened to meet Larry Tesler, who was the head of design at Yahoo at the time. And previously, and I didn't know this before I met him actually, he actually had been, was instrumental in designing a lot of the initial components of the Macintosh operating system at Apple when Mac first released. Things like drop-down menus, cut and paste, and other things. Larry hired me. For some reason, very surprising, that he chose to hire me. And I spun up the work around ads user experience at Yahoo in 2006 and stayed there for about 4 years working on that. But working with Larry was amazing because as a boss and as a mentor, he really challenged the way that I thought about design. I don't feel that I really understood what simplicity was until I got to work with him around really the notion of simplicity and orienting around a user's needs were so critical. Like the design crits that we would do together, and I would take in some of the ideas I was working on, was always very focused on boil it down, simple, simple, simple. In fact, he's well known for having a license plate that was no modes. He did not like modalities, did not like modal kinds of designs. But the orientation to the user and that simplicity piece was really important. And he was that kind of pivotal figure for me about really kind of leveling up the way I was thinking about design. And also coming into an organization like Yahoo, I hadn't dealt with design problems on a global scale before. So I learned a lot of those things from him.
Yeah, that's amazing. Really great insights. And just following on from that, what would be one moment in your career, like big or small, that you really sticks out and you're really proud of?
I've been so fortunate and so privileged to work on so many great products with so many great teams over the years. But I'll tell you one that jumps out to me here at YouTube. In March 2020, we all went home with lockdown, as the whole world did. And I remember just in advance of that, it became pretty clear to us at YouTube that live streaming was going to explode. People would want to connect with people around the world in ways that they had been doing outside of in the real world, but now in lockdown wouldn't be able to. And during that time, I was on the product side here at YouTube, and one of the products I was leading was live streaming. So when we went into lockdown, those first few months of lockdown from March till about June, July, live streaming just exploded. Everybody wanted to live stream. Traditional gamers and entertainment folks wanted to live stream, musicians wanted to live stream, bands, other things, but also very small community level organizations and groups wanted to live stream. We saw it all, and we saw it all explode, and it was happening 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So for those first few months of COVID, of the lockdown, I was leading the YouTube live streaming product, literally from a small kitchen table in my kitchen, and it was at both exhausting but also energizing, because the role that we were serving in the world became very clear when we saw the passion of our viewers and our creators and the impact we were having. So I'll never forget that. It was a keystone moment for me.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And you mentioned something very interesting there about you were working on the product side. Mm-hmm. So you've worked in leadership positions now as VP of product and now obviously Chief Design Officer. Mm-hmm. So having worked those two disciplines now, what would be one piece of advice that you could perhaps give to PMs working with UX, design and research, and vice versa?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the key insights for me on being both sides of the fence here is that to build compelling consumer products, you need two things. You need art and science coming together. And so product management and design are kind of both sides of different sides of the same coin. So on the product management side, I think that what product managers could do is they could spend more time investing in understanding the user journeys and understanding and empathizing with our users. Every time PMs challenge themselves to go out in the field, spend time with their customers in the environments where the customers are using their products, understand their lives, I think that really results in much better products. So I think that PMs could spend more time really going beyond the dashboards and the data to really understand the challenges in the lives of their users. On the flip side of this, designers who I think spend more time thinking about and empathizing about their users and engaging and seeing the challenges there and engaging in research. I think they could spend more time in the details and the analytics and the metrics of understanding the aspects of performance and metrics and goals, as well as the specific needs of the business and understanding what are the business metrics that matter, what are the problems that we are here to solve. I think if it's because of that art and science piece, both of those groups building up skills on the other side of the fence, I think are really what drives compelling consumer products.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And you've had a very illustrious career, obviously as PM and Chief Design Officer. I'd like you to cast your mind back now over all that time. Mm-hmm. And what advice would you have for someone just trying to break into the field of UX, perhaps just leaving university or something similar?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, I'll tell you one thing that I did that resonated well and that I have seen other junior folks come in UX. And I always see these things when this happens, it's super energizing. I think one thing, people, maybe they go to school, they get training, maybe they get a job or start playing around with UX. People come into UX from a diversity of different backgrounds. But what you can do, I think, to really show off who you are and your viewpoint is come up with your own project and execute it. Small, it doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't need to be some big startup thing. It doesn't need to be months long. But really create some examples of your work from beginning to end, from ideation to actually developing a product. So I did this many, many years ago when I started to get into design and was interested in doing more of this work. I was living in the southwest part of the U.S., and there was a Spanish mission nearby, and I came up with this idea. This is back when Flash was a technology that everybody was excited about. Remember those days? I do. And I came up with this idea. I was like, okay, I wanted to really show off how I could think about building a compelling user experience to use some of the skills I had in Flash and in front-end coding, design, photography, et cetera, to show my vision. So I gave myself the goal of a weekend to go to that Spanish mission, to photograph all the various parts of that mission complex, stitch that together, and build an interactive environment around exploring that with an interactive map that then would allow you then to go explore and poke into each one of those different parts of this famous Spanish mission in the American Southwest. And I did it end to end from like Saturday morning till late Monday morning. But I had this whole body of work, this one thing. And what I found is and I did 2 or 3 other examples of things like that. But what I found is when I went into interview, taking people through my thought process and then showing them every step and the end product, not just some rough designs, but the end product. It was super energizing, and people got a real sense, good or bad, about who I was and the way I thought about design and what I was passionate about. So those things don't require any money. They don't require any big opportunities or any kind of dealing with any kind of gatekeepers or anything like that. You can go do those in a weekend. Go do a few of those. And I have since seen other UX candidates come in various roles who have things like that. I remember a candidate came in with, he happens to be a surfer, and he built a really compelling website around Andy Irons, who was a famous surfer who passed away. And I remember in those interviews diving into his thought process around those things. And it was those kinds of examples allow you to tell your story rather than waiting for somebody to open a door for you around, oh, here's a job, et cetera. Go tell your own story.
The last question, do you have a personal philosophy or motto that you live by?
There's a few, but I think one of the most important ones, and one of the ones that I try and discuss with and try and emphasize with people that I mentor, is to always be focused on what's most important right now. Because we all have so much going on, whether it's our professional lives, personal lives, all these things. But I think that constantly reflecting on what are the 3 most important things right now, today, this week, this month, this quarter, this year, and reprioritizing those in real time can really help us not only focus on what's important, but also not be too consumed, stressed out, absorbed with things that aren't important. So I think what I always try and do is reprioritize. And I think about this every morning, like what are the 3 most important things I need to do today? And sometimes those prioritization change throughout the day or week or whatever, but doing that exercise really helps me stay focused. And so that's one of the things, it's one of the techniques that I kind of suggest other people do.
Wow. I mean, absolutely fascinating insights, Chris. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to the channel today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.